We are leaving the Middle East for this episode. Not because the Middle East is finished. We will return to it in episode 7. We are leaving because the story is not finished in the Middle East. The story extends to Venezuela, Greenland, Panama, Colombia, the Arctic, to a waterway in Central America, to rare earth minerals under ice that will not exist in 50 years. The same template, the same resource logic, the same questions about who decides, applied simultaneously on the other side of the planet. While the Middle East continues to burn and we are on March 2026, Trump was also threatening to seize Greenland from Denmark.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Threatening to retake the Panama Canal from Panama, sending warships to Venezuelan waters, imposing military-backed tariffs on Colombia, and publicly reviving a doctrine that was written in 1823 as a justification for American domination of the entire Western Hemisphere. This is not erratic behavior. Contrary to many's beliefs, this is a strategy.
Unusual practice. Rethink what you think you know.
Welcome back to The Arrangement. I'm your host, Charlie, and this is episode 6, and we're calling it Monroe's Revenge. James Monroe was the 5th President of the United States. In 1823, he declared that the Western Hemisphere was America's exclusive sphere of influence, and that any European power attempting to extend its control into the Americas would be regarded as a threat to American security. This became the Monroe Doctrine. It has never been formally repealed, and in 2025, it was given a new name, a new set of targets, and a new military instrument. This episode is about what that means for the people living in its path.
This is the most unusual practice. Rethink what you think you know with Charlie.
The Monroe Doctrine was born from a legitimate concern. European colonial powers, particularly Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal, were still active in the Americas in 1823, and the newly independent United States wanted to establish that this hemisphere was no longer a European playground. That is the stated origin. The applied history? As usual, that's different. The Monroe Doctrine was used to justify American military intervention in Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Panama, Guatemala, and Chile, among others. It was used to overthrow democratically elected governments. It was used to install dictators. It was used to protect American corporate interests, most famously the United Fruit Company in Central America, which operated with such authority over local governments that the countries it dominated were literally called banana republics. It was used to fund and train the Contras in Nicaragua in 1980s, paramilitaries who committed documented atrocities against civilians, in a covert operation that was illegal under American law and led to the Iran-Contra scandal. In 2025, Trump's national security strategy explicitly revived it, stating that the United States would reassert and enforce the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere, not in the language of diplomacy, in the language of dominance. Preeminence, the Western Hemisphere as an American possession to be managed. 200 years of Latin American sovereignty, formally dismissed in a policy document. Now, Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, larger than Saudi Arabia, approximately 304 billion barrels concentrated in the Orinoco Belt, a vast geological formation in the country's east. Venezuela's oil has been under American sanctions since 2019. Sanctions that have contributed to a severe economic crisis, hyperinflation, and the largest refugee crisis in Latin America history, with approximately 7 to 8 million Venezuelans having fled the country. Now, the official justification for the sanctions: Maduro's authoritarian government, electoral fraud, human rights violations. Those charges are largely accurate. Maduro's government is brutal and has rigged elections. That is also documented. And simultaneously, Venezuela's oil has been flowing to China at discounted prices because sanctioned producers have no other viable buyer. The sanctions designed to punish Maduro have driven Venezuela's oil into China's hands at below market rates. In 2025, Trump announced he would capture Maduro and vowed the United States would run the country, not support a transition, not facilitate elections, run it. American analysts and regional experts documented the deployment of U.S. military assets in the Caribbean in configurations consistent with positioning for an intervention designed to secure Venezuelan oil infrastructure. The framing: democracy and anti-narcotics operations. The resource underneath: 304 billion barrels of oil currently flowing to China, the largest reserve on Earth in a country 2,000 miles from Washington.
Most people are watching the war. A few are trying to understand it. This series is for the second group. 8 episodes, every thread connected, all sourced. The arrangement only on Unusual Practice.
When Trump announced in January 2025 that he intended to acquire Greenland and refused to rule out military force to do so, most of the commentary focused on the diplomatic absurdity of threatening a NATO ally over its autonomous territory. That commentary missed the point entirely. You see, Greenland sits on top of some of the world's most significant rare earth mineral deposits, elements essential for the production of electric vehicle batteries, wind turbines, advanced military technology, satellite systems, and the entire next generation of both the energy transition and weapons systems. Neodymium, dysprosium, and praseodymium, these are not abstract geological footnotes. They are the materials that determine who controls the technology of the next century. Currently, China controls approximately 60% of global rare earth production and approximately 85% of rare earth processing capacity. The United States is almost entirely dependent on Chinese rare earth supply chains for its most advanced military systems, including the F-35 fighter jet, guided missiles, and submarine navigation technology. Now, Greenland's deposits, if developed, would represent one of the most significant breaks from that dependency available to the Western world. And Greenland's position, straddling the Arctic Ocean, places it directly on the Northwest Passage, the Arctic shipping route that is becoming navigable as climate change melts polar ice, and which would cut the shipping distance between Asia and Europe by approximately 40% compared to current routes. Trump did not want Greenland because he is erratic. I know y'all like saying that, but someone told him what is underneath it, and someone told him what will be above it when the ice is gone. Denmark's response: that Greenland is not for sale. And that was met with Trump threatening economic retaliation. A NATO ally threatened with economic consequences for refusing to sell sovereign territory. The alliance meant to protect collective sovereignty against external aggression used as leverage to extract territory from a member.
Unusual Practice. We read the studies you pretend to quote. We question everything, especially the experts. It's the show that does the research so you don't have to, and saves you from another TED Talk while we're at it. Unusual Practice, where thinking's still a thing.
The Panama Canal is 50 miles of human engineering that connects the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Approximately 14,000 ships pass through it annually, roughly 5% of all global maritime trade. It is the Western Hemisphere's equivalent of the Strait of Hormuz, a single infrastructure choke point whose disruption ripples globally. Now, the United States built the canal, opening it in 1914 and controlled it until December 31st, 1999, when it was formally transferred to Panamanian sovereignty under the Torrijos-Carter treaties signed in 1977. In January 2025, Trump demanded the United States be given back control of the Panama Canal, citing Chinese influence over canal operations as a national security threat. A Hong Kong-based company, Hutchison Whampoa, operates ports at both ends of the canal. Trump called this unacceptable and demanded Panama return control. The Chinese influence concern is not entirely manufactured. Hutchison Whampoa's ownership structure does give Beijing potential intelligence leverage over canal traffic. That is a legitimate strategic concern. But Trump's solution, American seizure, is not a response to a Chinese intelligence threat. It is an attempt to reacquire a strategic infrastructure asset that was legally and legitimately transferred to Panamanian sovereignty 50 years ago. Panama is a sovereign nation. The canal is its territory. The demand for its return is not foreign policy, it is acquisition by threat. Panama, Greenland, Venezuela, 3 separate countries, 3 separate justifications: democracy, security, rare earths. One template, the same one used in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria. The framing changes. The logic underneath never does.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
Trump's attacks on NATO have been described as his most reckless foreign policy position. He has threatened to abandon the collective defense guarantee, the foundational principle that an attack on one member is an attack on all. He has demanded NATO members increase defense spending to 5% of GDP, an astronomical figure that no member currently meets. Here's what the analysis of Trump's NATO position almost always omits. When European countries panic about American commitment to NATO and rush to increase their defense spending, they buy American weapons, predominantly and specifically Lockheed Martin F-35 jets, Raytheon missile systems, Boeing military aircraft, and General Dynamics armored vehicles. So, Germany announced a special defense fund of 100 billion euros immediately after Russia invaded Ukraine. The majority went to American defense contractors. Poland signed agreements for F-35s, Abrams tanks, and HIMARS rocket systems, all American. The Baltic states accelerated procurement of American systems across every domain. France's Macron responded to Trump's NATO threats by proposing a European defense capability. The Charles de Gaulle repositioned coalition building, Macron's rearmament plan targeting 64 billion euros in defense spending by 2030. This is genuine European strategic autonomy emerging. And it is the one development in this entire series that is not entirely predictable, because it represents European governments beginning to calculate that American protection is no longer reliable.
Self-destruction sequence initiated.
But here's the current reality. NATO functions in significant part as the largest guaranteed defense procurement relationship in history. America's security commitments creates a permanent demand for American weapons. Threatening those commitments creates panic. Panic accelerates procurement. The instability generates the sales. So the global arms industry is worth $2.2 trillion annually. America accounts for 42% of all global weapons exports. The 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, the body theoretically responsible for global peace, collectively account for approximately 76% of all arms exports. The peacekeepers are the arm dealers. That is not a conspiracy. That is a balance sheet.
You stupid.
They're not.
What's 9 plus 10?
21.
You stupid.
Before we close this episode, I want to give you one moment in history that makes everything in this series feel less like revelation and more like a warning that was given clearly, publicly, by a 5-star general who became president of the United States and was comprehensively ignored. January 17, 1961, Dwight D. Eisenhower delivers his farewell address as president. He's a Republican. He's a general and the supreme commander of Allied forces in Europe during World War II. Nobody could accuse him of being soft on defense. And this is what he said.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
The military-industrial complex. A phrase he coined, a warning he gave on his last day in office, when he had nothing left to lose and no election left to win. He was describing the relationship between the defense industry, the companies that manufacture weapons, and the government institutions that purchase them, deploy them, and build foreign policy around the need to continue using them. A self-reinforcing system in which war is not a last resort, but a permanent economic and political condition. That was 1961, 64 years before the conversation we are having right now. The warning was given. The warning was specific. The warning was ignored. And the system Eisenhower described has grown in scale, in reach, in political integration, every single year since he spoke those words. $2.2 trillion per year, 42% controlled by one country, 5 permanent Security Council members accounting for 76% of exports, and a Middle East war whose primary beneficiaries in financial terms are the companies that built the weapons being fired. We started this episode in Venezuela. We went to Greenland, Panama, to NATO's defense procurement reality, and we ended with a 5-star general in 1961 telling you exactly how this works, with nothing to gain from the telling. The template is the same in every geography. Identify a resource, construct a justification, democracy, security, anti-terrorism, anti-narcotics, nuclear threat.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Apply the designation. Terrorist, rogue state, authoritarian, threat, intervene, install, whoever is currently useful, and collect. Every source in this episode is documented and linked in the description. And if you ask me if I'm afraid, yes, I am. Because humanity has no seat in government. In episode 7, we come back to the core. China and Russia, who have not fired a single shot, and how they are winning this war more comprehensively than the countries fighting it. And then we ask the question this entire series has been building towards. Not who is winning the war, but who decided it was worth having it.
Unusual practice. Deeper than a TikTok, tighter than a book.
This was The Unusual Practice. I am Charlie, your host. Please remember to subscribe, follow, comment, and thank you for listening to the series, The Arrangement. Because history did not just happen. I truly believe it was fully arranged.
Mom, somebody just followed me.